Hi, welcome to the Diablo podcast. This is your host, Flux, and I'm speaking with Wolfpaq this week, and we are going to talk about Skillrunes and the new Skillrune videos, well, new last week's Skillrune videos, and some other of the recent news occurrences. Luckily or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, there wasn't much news last week. It was lucky for me because I was moving, and I was just talking to Wolfpaq about that a little bit. So from the 28th or so, I guess, whatever that was, Friday, Thursday, I was offline for 3 days while I finished packing everything and turned my cable modem back to Comcast and drove from, I used to live north of San Francisco, and now I live just south of Portland, Oregon, which is about 600 miles up the west coast here in the U.S. And it's rained every day since I moved. Okay, actually, no, the last 3 days haven't rained so much. But this is the first podcast I'm recording from my new apartment, and I'm up in a cool loft area looking out over my living room with a 17-foot drop down here, so if I stumble and fall and you hear a scream, you'll know what it is.
And end of the podcast.
Yeah, well, you can keep talking for a while.
Oh, I guess.
You can do the sound. You can do the sign-off, right? You heard me do it before.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to move like a cow by yourself, unfortunately.
I think I can handle it. Although I don't know how I'm going to get the recording.
Well, once my bone's in it, I can crawl back up the stairs.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I'm sure my cat will rescue me. She'll carry me to safety like Lassie.
Absolutely, cats are loyal.
Yes, we used to. When I lived with my ex some years ago, we had two cats, and we always debated if we both died in our sleep, which one would eat us first. Yeah,
I don't know about that. I have a friend who eats once a day, not because he thinks it's the best thing for him, but because he's that lazy. And he eats with his coworkers, and that's pretty much it.
Or is it because he gets free food at work?
Yeah, it could be that.
Is he fat?
Dinner, breakfast. He is slightly overweight. I don't know how he does it.
Maybe there's a lot of snacking involved there.
I think there's also a lot of alcohol involved. Yeah, I think we're all going to gain some weight when Diablo comes out.
Yeah,
stocking up. Throw that out there.
Drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was funny. For the last week, I mean, it's now, we're recording this on Sunday night. It should be up tomorrow morning, Monday morning. What is today, the 6th? It'll be up this morning of the 6th, yeah. But anyway, until Vashiak made a couple of forum posts on Friday, and there was some stuff. But basically, from the end of last week to the middle of this week, there was nothing. Which was, kind of lucky since I was offline almost the whole time. And, we had Ellie and Holy Knight did a nice job covering on the news stuff. But when I got back online, Comcast, of course, made it almost impossible for me to get my cable modem working again at my new address. What do I want for $60 a month, God forbid I can actually get online once in a while.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so I got on and I looked at the news, and there was there were 2 fan art posts and a couple of other sort of filler stuff. Not that not that fan art sucks or anything, but we do one of those a week, and there were 2 of those in the last 4 posts, and I was like, Jesus, is it maybe we had no news?
Yeah.
And I checked the blue Twitter feed, and there's nothing. Not even the stupid, the annoying stuff we always complain about with, if Bale were a celebrity, who would he be? Lindsay Lohan or something like that. You're like, what? Is this news?
Yeah.
And Vashiak had made 2 BattleNet posts, and they were both these bitter, angry, go to hell people kind of posts. The one post was can we get something new? We want to have something to drool over for the next 2 months. And Vashiak's well, we posted the last thing 6 weeks ago, so you're still good for 3 more weeks or something. It's dude, they're paying you for this.
What?
Yeah, at least pretend to care,
Right.
And then of course there was the 1 million likes thing on Facebook, and I assume you probably saw that when it came out there, Wolfie.
Yeah, no, I saw it, and it was those wallpapers, right?
And yeah, when I got online, looked at the forum thread, there were 70 posts on our news post, and there's 5 pages in the forum. And I'm oh, it must have been something good. And I'm wait, those look kind of familiar. And what was your reaction to those, to the 1 million Facebooks thing?
I'm not surprised. I'll put it that way. It was just, didn't they release recently some Tyrael fan art though? Or concept art that was pretty cool.
Yeah, a couple days later. Yeah, a couple of days later, Vashiak's basically, sorry, the 1 million one sucked. Here's something else.
Yeah.
Quite worded that way, but.
Yeah, but I had no hopes for something awesome. I was just, we're just pretty much waiting for major system announcements, which they've already established won't come through Facebook updates or Twitter feed or forum posts.
And as people pointed out, they did that really cool thing with the Runestone videos, which we're going to discuss here in a minute. A week beforehand. Like, why didn't they just save that and then coincide it with the million thing?
Yeah, they could have. So there wasn't even much in the way of new information aside from specific rune effects, which we all know are still subject to change. But even still, I thought that those Runestone videos were really, really cool and really pumped up my excitement for the game. Not that it needs much to have that happen, but it way, way better than just a few screenshots or repeat wallpapers in high def or whatever they did.
Yeah, so, I mean, like Bashak said, they did wallpapers apparently for the World of Warcraft and the, what's the other game they make? StarCraft. God, I couldn't even think of StarCraft.
StarCraft.
Apparently they had a 1 million likes thing on those pages as well, and they also did wallpapers. So, whatever. I mean, wallpapers are cool. We post those every week pretty much. But, it's like their artwork we already seen. I mean, really nice artwork by this guy, Josh Tallman, is one of the main art guys at Blizzard who drew those. But they've been on all the character pages, all the class pages on the official site for like 2 years, so.
Right.
It was like, well, what can you do?
Yeah, it's nothing new, but, I mean, nothing on Facebook was terribly exciting anyway, so. Sort of the attitude I took toward the talisman being removed as well. I mean, I'm extremely disappointed because I really like charms and I really like the more ways there are to customize your stats, but them deciding to remove it is sort of like them committing to get this game out as fast as they can, since a redesign would take a significant amount of time, and I'm okay with that. I think at this point it's just hurry up and get the damn game out because it's we're all looking forward to it so much.
Yeah, they'll probably work back in the talisman and an expansion, or maybe, they said a patch, but I mean, Diablo 2, they said lots of stuff. We're going to work this back in a patch, and then never got back in. Like we talked about last week, the guilds, guilds and guild halls and trading systems, other things they always promised us.
Yeah, you still had that screenshot too. That was awesome.
Yeah, the old, I actually saw that in person. They had just put in not the screenshot, but I actually did see a guild hall when we visited Blizzard North in early 2000. They had just gotten that working in the game. And I mean, you just entered a game and it was like this little grassy area and you walked like, half a screen and you came into that little hall as seen in the screenshot. And you couldn't do anything. You could just walk in and stand in it, but they were like, well, this is going to do this and this stash here is going to be a shared stash for the guild. And you can like put money in this stone and like the guild person will be in charge of a treasury. And, we had like questions like, how big is the stash? I'm like, we haven't really thought about that, Or what do you do if the guild leader quits the game? And they're like, well, we haven't really thought about that, So It was obviously just, and that was like, a month and a half before the beta, so it was a little late to get it in.
Yeah, and then it never got in, right?
Which, pretty much is what I'm afraid might happen with talismans or other things. But they have a bigger team this time, and they're not going to, as we've learned recently from Max Schaefer and others, as soon as they got to they finished Diablo 2, like they had people starting on Diablo 3. And then especially as soon as the expansion was done, like everybody who was working on that started working on Diablo 3 or else the other secret game they've never talked about. So I think they were just wanting to move on. Hopefully the Diablo 3 team is all going to start working on Diablo 4.
Yeah, no, that would not be good. But I think it's a safe assumption to say X-Pac. I mean, they like to have new features to advertise to get people to buy their expansions, and Talisman is definitely a very compelling one. So, if that makes it back, then very cool. Yep.
Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
And they can add a leprechaun character as well, perhaps.
I certainly hope so.
Secret leprechaun level with a pot of gold and a rainbow. That would work pretty well, actually.
Yeah. You chase around a leprechaun. I like that.
Sounds like my dating history. So, which has not, it's funny. I live in a place called Beaverton now, and of course, I can't help but say Beavertown. It's like, oh, that's a good name for dating prospects for a heterosexual male.
Yeah.
Welcome to Beavertown.
Beavertown.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Runestone videos. Are you aware of these things called Runestones in the game? I don't know if you've heard anything about that. It's kind of a new feature. Those have caught your eye previously?
Yeah. No, they've talked about them for a while.
Okay, give our listeners a 30-second summary of what Runestones do in case they're totally new to Diablo 3 and have no idea.
So Runestones are basically items that you socket into skills instead of socketing something into a weapon, and it completely changes the skill. It changes the graphic, it changes the audio sound associated with the skill, and it changes the way the skill works. It basically makes it a completely new skill. And yeah, that's what a runestone is. There's 5 different runestones. The current names.
Can you name all 5 in alphabetical order?
I not off the top of my head, although I'm looking at the rune page on our wiki right now, so I can read them.
That'll make it a little easier.
Yeah, there's alabaster, crimson, indigo, golden, and obsidian. And also each of the skills has 7 levels, so the higher level of the skill, the better.
The runes have 7 levels.
Or, I'm sorry, yeah, each one of the runes has 7 levels. So the higher level rune you have, the more effective it is in the modification of the skill. It's not clear to me how exactly that's going to be differentiated from putting skill points in terms of power increase, but I imagine it would be in terms of the effect of the rune, as opposed to just like a damage increase of the skill. But I mean, we can't get into specifics until we have a lot more information. But I think, what did they say? Levels 1 through 3 will be normal, and 4 and 5 nightmare, and 6 and 7 will drop in hell.
That's what they've said.
Also, one of the posters said the color is going to be purple. The item color.
Yeah, the item color of runes on the ground apparently will be purple.
Yeah, so when you're holding Alt and you see a purple text, you'll just, I don't know, get really excited or not so excited, depending on whether you have it or need it.
Yeah, we really know nothing about the scarcity of runes. It's going to be interesting to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they say 6 and 7 on Hell, but I mean, that doesn't really tell us much. That's like saying you can find Dole runes on Hell in Diablo 2 or something,
Right.
I mean, you can find Vexes on Hell also, but how often do you do it? So.
Yeah.
And we don't know if you can upgrade runes via recipes with the artisans. God, I keep wanting to say artisans every time.
Artisans, right. I would think, my guess would be is that they won't be like gems. My guess is would be that if you want to rank 7, you'll have to find it, because I don't think they want people farming a bunch of rank 4 runes in Nightmare so that they can have something super powerful in Hell. Or maybe they do want that. I don't know. I would guess not, though. I would guess you have to be in Hell to get the most powerful version of the rune, or buy it, on the auction house or whatever they end up making for trade.
Yeah, it could be like early in Diablo 2, when they first had the runes, you could only cube them up to 14 or something like that, and higher than that you couldn't combine them anymore. They might make runes so you can cube up to 5 or something like that, but then you can't get any higher. You have to actually find your 6s and 7s.
Yeah, it could also be a quest reward too, to get a really high level one at the end of normal or something, just so you can see what it's like.
Yeah, we could use something like the Hellforge, the Runeforge quest or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just smash Diablo's Colostomy bag or something, and you get a high-level rune.
Yeah, and I'm also kind of hoping that, like gems, runes don't have level requirements, so that when we're, done with our initial character, level 60, whatever, and you want to start a new one, you'll be able to send them a bunch of level 7 runes to really plan your build, and so you don't have to waste time looking for low-level ones. At least that's my hope.
You don't think that'll be wildly overpowered?
I think it will, but for normal. But I mean,
that's the whole point.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point, right? I mean, normal difficulty is supposed to be a joke, anyways. So whatever will help you get through it faster after you've done it the first time, I think I support.
Yeah, we really know nothing about this stuff yet, and Blizzard might not even know about it. They're probably still balancing this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we're sure that gems don't have a level requirement, right? Or at least Blizzard has said they won't. Whether or not it changes is totally,
they've said that'll be like the big twink. The big twinking item will be, but I mean, even that seems like as effective as the bonuses seem like they'll be, as rare as high-level gems are. If it's adding like plus 50 dexterity or something, I mean, of course we don't have dexterity anymore, but adding plus 50 to some attribute, or 70 or something like that, it seems like it could be crazy. We only know the stats for a couple of the level 1, level 2 gyms, and there's 14 levels, so God knows what they're going to be like.
Yeah, or how they're going to scale as you cube them up, or whatever you do to improve them, or upgrade them.
As you art them up, I guess we'll call it.
Right, art them up.
Or arty them up, if it's me saying it.
Sure.
So we got, as you mentioned earlier, we got this cool Runestones video. And it showed off, well, there were 5 videos actually. It showed one skill for each of the 5 classes and what all 5, it showed the base skill and then what it looks like with all 5 runestones. It gave us a very brief description of what that would do. No numbers, no stats, etc. And the videos were just on like sort of this black, this matrixy, what do they call it? The loading screen or something where they could get, weapons, lots of weapons.
Yeah.
It's like that. There's no monsters there. So in a few cases that actually adds some uncertainty to how it functions. And I'll get to that in a minute on some of the individual runes. But, it was obviously cool to look at it and see all of the effects.
Yeah, it really put the entire focus of the video onto the skill effects instead of on whatever background they would have had in the normal game if that's where they had filmed it. So I really like the background. And
if it had been, say just Fallen in every video, we would have gotten bored of just Fallen being massacred in huge mobs. And it would have been hard to see because we don't know if the skills were level 1 or level 20 or whatever, or the runes were level 1 or level 7. Yeah. So people would have been saying, Golden looks weak on this skill because it only killed 3 Fallen, and whereas the other one killed 10 Fallen. But it's like, well, we don't know what the levels were, and you can't really scale it that way.
Right.
But one of the things that I found interesting about the videos is there was sort of a mini controversy some months ago where people were concerned we would never see the regular skills of anything, the regular graphics of any skill. Because runes, once we realized basically at last year's BlizzCon how powerful all the runestones were. And like it would always be better to have any runestone than nothing, than no runestone.
Right.
And Bastiak, I think, came out and said something like, at least one rune in every skill is just going to look just the same as normal. It's going to just lower the cost or up the damage or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And then when you watch these videos, every single one of them, I believe, changed. Every single rune looked different than the base in all 5 skills.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way. Some of the differences were more pronounced than the others. Like a couple of the whirlwind ones weren't drastically different, but there was a difference. I mean, you can't say there was an original skill animation there when it wasn't.
Yeah, the acid storm one was one that had what was virtually the same, the witch doctor skill.
Right.
And, just the vomiting head made like a bigger splash when it puked. The vomiting Mardi Gras mask of doom.
Yeah, it was the indigo one, right? The multi-strike rune or whatever.
Yeah, but that was the only one that I thought that made it, even like the Ray of Frost for the wizard. There was one that just lowered the cost of it, but it still had like a little golden thing or, some colored little graphic swirling around the jet of cold.
Yep. Yeah.
So it would seem that their initial comments that there will always be one rune that looks the same is no longer the case, because at least not with this batch. We've seen 5 and all 5 are different, so that's a pretty strong argument against it.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I'm also not one of the people who's my general thought in terms of looks is that I don't care how it looks if it makes me more powerful, whether it's a hat or a skill rune or whatever. So
it's a hat. So you'd wear the Diablo 3 version of the Shaco without flinching?
Oh, I totally would. I'd wear that pretty green bonnet and I would enjoy it.
I always like that name.
Yeah, me too.
We actually had a moment when we were in our old chat room for the Diablo 2 site before the game. We used to get Max and other devs would be in there pretty often. And one time they were in there joking about how they just made this new hat in the game and it was so ugly. They thought players would be too insulted to wear it. Like it would look like a dunce cap. Of course we didn't get a screenshot. And obviously that was that hat.
Uh-huh.
The bonnet. What the hell was the low level of it? It's flesh skull. It wasn't a skull cap. It was just a regular cap, I guess.
Cap, yeah.
Just a leather cap. And it was just ugly, stupid hat. They were going to give it good stats just to screw with us. And they did.
And they did. And they called it the Harlequin Quest. Or Crest. Harlequin Crest.
Yeah, but that wasn't even added in until the expansion. That was the elite version. So
right.
That was a year in the making. But one other thing I thought about with the skill rune graphics changes or not changes is that, especially in PvP, you want to know what rune someone's got in their skill. Obviously we'll have every visual memorized at some point. And, if the wizard's firing off his Ray of Frost, you want to know if it's going to cause extra damage or extra chill or, whatever it's going to do. Or, if they have a lower cost, they can cast more of it, that kind of thing. So you will want I guess no one in PvP would ever be going with an unruned skill, so that part's a little bit irrelevant. But you definitely want at least 5 different looks for the 6 possible views of a skill. So you'll be able to identify what you're facing.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent that makes sense, but I don't feel that. Well, obviously the Ray of Frost rune that changes it to this AoE or this like wizard-centric Blizzard thing. I mean, that's going to be a huge noticeable difference, and you're going to want to alter your strategy accordingly. But I feel like all the other Ray of Frost skill runes, you're probably going to react to it the same way, just regardless of how it's, because, you don't want to be sitting there frozen taking damage every second, regardless of how it's runed, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I was saying that in more general sense of every skill in the game. I mean,
Right.
if someone's got a runestone that adds stun or adds, chill or something or whatever, you'll want to know if this is going to chill me, but before it hits you, ideally.
Yeah. That's true.
And it's interesting that all the ones they showed us were basically attack skills. I mean, we're going to talk about them each skill a little bit individually, but people have been wondering like, what does the rune do in slow time? That kind of thing. Or teleport. We've had some examples in the past, or of like basic your buffs, like your Barbarian Warcry kind of things.
Yeah.
It's easy to think of 5 different sort of modifications of a cold attack or a whirlwind, that kind of thing. Even though the whirlwind ones are actually pretty inventive in a couple of cases.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of more excited about some of the defensive skills, like, and how they'll be ruined, like mirror image. I don't know where they could go with that, but there's a lot of room for creativity. There's a lot of room for creativity there. They can't just say, okay, now you're. Well, I mean, I suppose they could say this rune makes your mirror images do fire, and this rune makes them do cold. But that's really, I feel like they have more creativity than that.
Yeah, they have a lot of creativity. There's 600 of these or something when you get all the skills times 5 or times 6.
Yeah.
They've done an amazing job thinking up stuff. It's going to be interesting to see how they balance and which ones characters like to use. And
weren't they talking at some point about a teleport rune that gave off a couple mirror images when you teleported? Because that's a genius idea as well.
Yeah, I think that actually was what one of the teleports did. There was one that turned into like a damage attack, so when you landed, it was like it was almost like a ground stomp kind of thing. When you came down, everybody in your vicinity got hurt, and one of them created a mirror image. What is that? Are you typing?
Oh no, one of my chinchillas hopped on the wheel.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. I can hear this.
Yeah.
Hopefully that won't come through in the background too much.
Yeah, powering my computer.
You have to pedal faster.
Yeah.
You're getting slower. You have to close some windows.
Yeah, losing power.
So a little bit on the specific of the skills. We saw the Barbarian with his whirlwind, and it seemed like 3 of them were sort of a basic. I kind of liked that all the whirlwinds were it's still the whirlwind skill. It's not like he didn't stand still and shoot out like meteors or something. It seems kind of like whirlwind's like a classic enough skill that you want to always have the Barbarian spinning around, smashing things when he uses it.
Yeah, it is a fantastic skill. I agree. I'm glad as well.
And the interesting one, Indigo, was kind of cool when it spawns little smaller typhoon kind of things, little hurricanes that zip out around the screen. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's very iconic. Like you're doing whirlwinds and then little whirlwinds are popping out. I really like that decision for that effect.
Yeah, and the Obsidian seems like a PvP skill where it's immunity to immobilizing effects. But the one that I thought was most interesting was Alabaster, whereas you hit enemies with critical strikes, they get confused and attack each other.
Yeah. This is what, I mean, they've hinted before that there will be proc on crit effects, and
listen to your WoW jargon. Proc on crit. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great idea because it really encourages you. If you're going to socket the whirlwind skill with the Alabaster rune, you will want to have a reasonable chance to critically strike so that it actually happens when you do your whirlwind. You don't want to whirlwind through a mob of like 20 creatures and have one of them get confused. You want to, you're going to want to stack precision so that you can critical strike a lot. So
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool concept, though. I mean, it really makes it's almost like a crowd control sort of element to this skill, and it would make it, there'd be instances I would think that with an alabaster whirlwinding barbarian, that you would use whirlwind in much different ways than another character. I mean, we don't know how powerful it'll be or what kind of life leech you're going to have, etc. So, I mean, it might be really dangerous to spin through a mob ordinarily, but if you have a good level of alabaster and you're proccing your crits, as you say,
yeah.
then that could really be useful. If you turn like a third of the monsters into basically tanks for you for a short term.
Yeah, no, that would be great. It's also kind of amusing if you think about it from the monster's point of view. Like, oh, I just got hit so hard that I forgot who I'm supposed to be attacking. I think that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I like the game aspect of it. It may be cool if we get some, the little lore paragraph or so on every skill and every runestone and stuff.
I'm a little bit curious about the obsidian rune providing immunity to immobilizing effects. I don't see whirlwind as being a real gap closing skill. I don't if I was a wizard and a barbarian started whirling into me, I think my strategy would be get out of his path, not root him in place. So I don't know how useful that's actually going to be.
I had some very bad experiences in the BlizzCon demo last year in PvP, I mean, using whirlwind and getting nailed by either Grasp of the Dead or Slow Time. And suddenly you're spinning it, you're moving, a quarter inch every 2 seconds, and you're just an absolute sitting duck and you're doomed.
Yeah, but neither of those are immobilizing, right?
I think that's what they mean. I think it means anything that debuffs your movement skill. I mean, they both slow you. They don't actually freeze you, but they slow you.
Oh, okay. I guess I took it more as means a solid root in place effect, but that wouldn't really make sense because there aren't that many of those that we've seen.
Yes, I assumed that it would be anything. I don't know. It might even work against cold. I mean, you wouldn't be chilled or slowed down by cold effects once you were using it.
Yeah. Oh, that would make sense actually. That would make a lot more sense than just snares prevention, or root prevention.
And it also might be almost like a cleansing kind of thing, where if you did, if you were hit by some effect, or, you were chilled or slowed for 5 seconds, you could do, you could just whirlwind, 1 foot, and then immediately it shakes that off and you're back to normal.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Yeah, I mean, you're right. How much resources whirlwind consumes also will affect how easily you can do that, but that's a good point.
True. Okay, let's go on to the monk's sweeping wind, which sounds like a metaphor for something or other.
Yeah.
This was pretty cool because it was actually a new skill. I guess we'd seen the name, we'd never seen it in action, so we didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
And it's a combo skill where the monk seems to spin around and hit things on all sides of him with, it's 3 levels, like all combo skills. And the last level of it has these big powerful effects from the various runestones. You could make it, what did it do? There was it added damage with blades that would fly around. You could do a fire damage kind of thing. You could make a persistent whirlwind that had a damage over time. Another one had a knockback effect.
Yeah, sand.
They all seem to be kind of a barrier, sort of a circular barrier around the monk that damaged things that were in range.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It sort of complements the skill's intention, which is to be an AoE attack, AoE combo building attack, really. Except for the golden rune, which is just makes it more effective at what combo attacks are meant to do, which is give you more spirit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
one
of
the things that people were wondering about was what would runes affect with combo skills, because they essentially have 3, individual effects. They have, a lot of them power up, it does a minor debuff and then a larger debuff and then a really big debuff.
Yeah.
Most of them have a different effect on all 3 stages. The only one I could think of off the top of my head that didn't have that was the exploding palm, where it just did damage, and only the 3rd stage gave you the exploding palm effect, which was, the super cool thing.
Right.
So it's not clear if the runestones, how they'll boost each individual level, or if they only boost the final result. You couldn't tell from this video. That was one of the problems with the video being without any monsters. You couldn't tell if it was making each individual hit do the final effect, Or, like the one that added fire damage. Is it making the first and second hit also add fire damage? Or is it only the final hit that makes this big whirling cyclone of flame?
Yeah.
And we don't know. We don't know, so.
That's true. That's one, but would we have really been able to tell if they had example monsters,
Yeah, and I also was wondering how many things it was hitting. The monk did this cool little swirling, whacking thing, but you couldn't tell if that was capable of hitting one monster or 10 monsters. Maybe
Right.
maybe it goes like 2, 4, 8. The potential hits per level of the combo, or
Yeah.
maybe it's 5 on each one, or obviously there's lots more to speculate and lots more to experiment with.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that these videos, as cool as they are, aren't intended to give us, a detailed understanding into how each skill works. Like the Barbarian whirlwind, I'm really curious to know how attack speed affects it. And like how it's different whirlwinding dual wielding versus with a one-hander versus with a two-hander, like is it better to have slow weapons or fast weapons?
And range and,
right, range,
effect.
exactly.
If you really want critical strike bonuses and, like you said,
Yeah.
dual wielding to get more hits faster. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot we don't know.
The devil is in the details, as we say.
Yeah. I think once closed beta starts, we'll really get an insight into what Blizzard's planning for the skills. And even though things are going to change, they're probably not going to do a complete overhaul of every single skill, so we can start building that knowledge base.
Another thing that they mentioned about, Jay Wilson mentioned long ago in an interview, I think actually I asked him this question, and after 2009 we had an interview after BlizzCon, about weapon-specific monk skills, or any kind of, any character, any class skills. And he said that there might be some weapon-specific monk ones. Like, if there were some, I think I should have looked up the link, but I really think he said something like if there's like a big sweeping attack, it might only be with the staff. And of course this skill is called Sweeping Wind, so I may be misremembering that with, hoping to tie it in more clearly, but, does it seem, you saw the graphic, the animation of the monk, he's leaping around and spinning his staff around him.
Yeah.
Does it seem like that would work if he was using, a sword, or if he's using dual fists, or should that be only something that works like with a staff, or maybe with like a pole arm or something like that?
That's a good question. My preference would be that it would work with any weapon, because I feel like part of the reason to have a broad and rich, diverse item scheme is that you can pick the weapon that works best for you and be able to use it regardless of your build. But I could certainly see the case that the sweeping attack couldn't be used with a sword because it obviously is a completely different weapon. But that's Blizzard's decision.
Or maybe it would just be lesser range, like kind of like whirlwind sort of thing. Obviously whirlwind wouldn't really work with some weapons, but we kind of let it, like you couldn't really whirlwind very effectively with a dagger, and like you'd be hitting with your arm half the time.
Right.
Or like a staff seems kind of silly with whirlwind. It would just be knocking into stuff versus, something with a blade.
Yeah. No, I think that it should. You're right. I think that it should definitely affect how the skill works, but I think it should still be able to use the skill.
One other thing about the monk that I'm wondering is, you mentioned earlier with one of the runes adds to the spirit regeneration from your charge up. The way the spirit not regen, it's generation, not regeneration. The way it worked at BlizzCon last year, it was very linear and literal. Like you got, as I recall with Lightning Fist, you just got 2 fury. You got 2 points of spirit for each time you used the skill. So if you did all 3 levels of it, you would get 6 points. And it wasn't like a percentage based, it wasn't cumulative, it wasn't exponential, it was just literally, you do this, you get 2 points. So you could very easily work out the math, if you're using some other skill that cost 20 spirit, you had to do, 6.5 of these things. You basically do 7 of these hits to get enough to do one of those.
Right.
And of course, I'm sure that'll be modified by equipment and others, and probably have traits that up it and such. But it'll be interesting to see how fast people build that up and versus what their other skills are.
Yeah, so based on what we've experienced in other games, the golden rune, which is generally the resource efficiency rune, would sound pretty weak. But like you were saying, if a monk could unleash his 25 spirit spell after 4 hits instead of 6 or 8, that's like a pretty substantial difference. So, and And also every class is going to have a different resource, but I think, and willpower too, right? The attribute willpower is supposed to affect how efficient you are with using your resources. So I don't know if that means that it'll lower the spirit cost versus the golden rune, which increases the rate you gain spirit. Like some monks could definitely come up with builds that lets them spam their skills much more frequently than others. And that's cool to me. I think that's a good opportunity to diversify builds even further by taking advantage of class-specific resource systems.
That was well said. Diversify builds by class-specific resource systems.
Yeah,
I could hear that coming out of Jay Wilson's mouth. You get bonus points for that one. One of the things I think will be interesting to see with monks is, we're pretty familiar with people enjoying being one skill wonders or two skill wonders in Diablo 2.
Right.
And, the game pretty much allowed that, where quite often you had one skill that was just far better than anything else you could do.
Yeah, well, with synergies, you were forced to pretty much pick one or two skills and then pump their synergies to make them powerful.
Yeah, and players tend to be lazy in a lot of ways. People want to follow cookie-cutter builds and just, shoot frozen orbs forever. They don't want to modify and alternate a bunch of stuff. It's fun to just use Zeal endlessly or, Blessed Hammer or whatever.
Or Whirlwind.
And they're trying to get away from that in D3, it seems like. It's funny, people often complain about the 7 skills being too few in D3. I'm myself amongst them, the complainers. But, you look at what characters did in the most common builds in D2, and obviously there's some, fishy mancers and stuff that use a lot. But quite often people are using, one or two skills, and then everything else is just a synergy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's the devil's advocate case that I've taken for pretty much most of the time on the boards and whatnot. I'm looking back at the characters I made. I had a whirlwind barbarian. How much diversity was there in what I did with my whirlwind barbarian? Not much. I whirlwinded or I berserked first physical immune monsters, and that was pretty much it. Also, I cast my support skills like battle orders and battle command and the defensive one. But shout, there you go. So that's 5 skills right there that though that's all I use regularly. And so
it'll be interesting if they can actually force us to be more diversified in our skill choices. Yeah, but I can easily envision monks. I've played the monk for 3 BlizzCons now, I guess. 2 BlizzCons. He wasn't in 08. And the power-ups are just awesome. They're really effective and they're really varied. And I can easily see somebody just using like 2 power-ups and just like nothing else. Especially normal.
When you say power-ups, you mean the aura or like the combo skills?
The kind of combos. Yeah, I'm using a D2 terminology here. I can see people just using the same combos, just indefinitely. You could do nothing but lightning fists in last year's BlizzCon demo and absolutely kick ass with that. No problem. You weren't even slowed down.
It was normal as well.
Yeah, true. It was easy. There's big, cool thunder sounds out my back window here.
Hey.
I have actual weather here now that I live somewhere with weather. Yeah, check my surge protector here. Okay, good. It's on.
All right. Make sure
There's a crackling, hissing noise. That'll be the end of tonight's podcast.
Yeah, I'll recognize that.
Yeah, we've had lots of misting, sprinkling rain here, but never anything like actual weather. I've been here for a whole week, so I'm an old veteran now.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I can just see people not even, especially new players or just lazy players. I don't want to see players who are just lacking in skill, whatever you want to say, but just never even bothering to use anything but their combos. They might find just 1 or 2 combos and just go that forever, and maybe like 1 support skill.
Yeah.
Just having a full bulb of spirit forever.
Yeah, eventually they'll realize that, hopefully, that they can be more effective if they spend some of that spirit.
I think people will have to on higher difficulty levels, at least hopefully. But
yeah, the monk has this.
I think we'll see a lot of screenshots of new players, and they'll just have this full bulb of white milky stuff, and be like, "What is this resource on the monk for? All I ever do is fill it up. I never use any of it."
Yeah. Who knows? The people who, when they select their new skills, actually read through the description will hopefully notice that the majority of the monk skills consume spirit. Hopefully. But yeah, there's at least some people who miss it.
Yeah, we'll see. We don't really know what the costs are going to be or how that's going to break down, but lots to plan and look forward to. So, Witch Doctor, Acid Cloud. We need a good name for this. It's like the vomiting Mardi Gras mask of doom, something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was
terrifying.
Because it was actually, the skill was initially called Acid Cloud, but it was a wizard skill. You can actually see her using it in the 2008 gameplay movie. And it looks like a kind of like a small radius of blizzard, but it's green. It's kind of like a splashing, it's like melted blizzard basically. It's like acid rain.
Acid rain.
And it's funny it's still called Acid Cloud, even though, if you'd watched that Runestone video, would you ever have thought the words Acid Cloud? I mean, acid, yes, but there's no cloud. Yeah, it's a scary mask kind of thing. So I'm surprised they didn't change the name at some point, but maybe they still will.
Yeah, it's possible. Although, I mean, I'm sure we could find other examples of skilled names that don't exactly evoke the image of what's happening.
I mean, Whirlwind's pretty good, and Ray of Frost.
Yeah, Whirlwind's great.
And the Demon Hunters was Cluster Arrow, which is, pretty accurate description.
Yeah.
But we're working with a small sample set here.
Right.
Did you notice in the video, the Witch Doctor could be seen holding kind of a totem thing in his offhand?
Yeah, the shrunken head or whatever.
Which is
very cool.
That's not something we had previously been announced. So it seems like it'll be similar to the Wizard's Orbs, and that it's an item you can only use in your offhand, and it's kind of in place of a shield, but it doesn't give you any blocking bonuses. It just gives you offensive bonuses.
Yeah, spell damage probably.
Yeah, and we also
percentage.
We also know that the Demon Hunters have quivers they can use, which basically do the same thing. You don't actually need to have a quiver to shoot arrows because arrows are magical apparently. But
I like that.
Yeah, it's just it takes away the whole reloading thing with dual crossbows, at least I guess.
Right.
But it seems like those three characters, the Wizard, the Witch Doctor, and the Demon Hunter, all have a special offhand thing that boosts their damage when they're using ranged attacks or spells. And do you think that that's unfair to the Monk and the Barbarian? Do they need something like that? Or because they can dual wield and they use big-ass two-handed weapons, it doesn't make any sense for them?
Yeah, I think, for the Barbarian and the Monk, your option is to dual wield. And since dual wield crossbows are now just like one item, right? Like one item slot. It totally makes sense to give Witch Doctors, Wizards, and Demon Hunters something to put in their offhand to sort of, give them an extra stat boost if nothing else, because you know that there'll be Barbarians and Monks taking advantage of dual wielding. And you don't want, I'm sort of hoping that they do a better job in D3 balancing like a two-handed staff with a one-handed, wand or scepter and a orb in the offhand, because in Diablo 2, you pretty much never used a staff unless you were leveling up, and there was that one staff that gave you an XP boost. But I mean, other than that, it was one-handed and offhand for sure. Although, I mean, part of that also is the blocking mechanic, so I guess it's not really a fair comparison.
Blocking was so wildly overpowered in D2.
Yeah.
So easily, it was basically, the 75% physical damage negation, pretty much.
Yeah.
And shields are much less effective in D3 than that, so.
Yeah.
And it seems like we'll only see Barbarians and Monks using shields anyway, because all these other characters have these offhand. I'm sure there'll be some smarter builds where you actually want to use a shield with I guess not with your Demon Hunter, but with your Wizard or your Witch Doctor. But it'll be so tough to give up all those shiny bonuses from your offhand orb or your totem. You wonder how many characters will just be like, oh, screw it. Maybe hardcore characters will have to be a little more realistic about shield use, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, if blocking isn't anywhere near as effective in D3, there may be no incentive at all. Maybe you'll have to use your skill build and rely on that more to keep you alive. I know that the Wizard's the character I've been reading into the most, just because it's the class I'm going to be playing first, and I know that the Wizard has a lot of skills that are survivability focused. So I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of Wizards using shields.
What do you mean by survivability bonus? Like ice armor kind of stuff?
Yeah, like ice armor, mirror image, diamond skin. Teleport is a very defensive skill. I don't think we'll be seeing very many hardcore mages taking the teleport damage rune. just there's ice armor, storm armor, and we saw a bunch of wizard traits as well that were tailored towards survivability. So, and Ray of Frost, the one we watched here, slows attack speed and movement speed. So I think the wizard is going to have lots of ways to stay alive if that's your focus.
Well, if you're playing hardcore, it better be.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you plan on playing hardcore, by the way? Eventually,
no.
ever? No?
No, I can't stand the thought of losing hours of work just because of a, electrical power outage or whatever. or lag or a real life. There's an infinite, or not infinite, but there's dozens of things that could happen. Like, I got distracted because my phone rang, and so I got mobbed, and I can't stand that idea.
You didn't play hardcore any in D2?
Nope. I played just for grins. I think the highest level I got was like 15, so not really.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it personally, but I don't know if I'll have time this time.
Yeah,
but that's like all I did D2 for a long time. I had multiple level 90 pluses, so some of
really
them
hardcore.
Yeah, I had 199 eventually with a Javazon. That was in the 109 though, when you could get to 199 very easily, just doing cow runs or whatever.
Oh, I see.
But I had I probably had 20 characters over level 80 hardcore, so.
Did you ever save and exit if you were about to die?
I'm sure I did a few times. It didn't really, generally when you died you'd get lagged out, you get desynced or something. We always should joke that people who always seem to die in the 20s and 30s, who you played with and had no lag, whenever they died it was because of lag, and we were like, yeah, another lag got you again, huh? It's like, yeah, sure did. But obviously there were times that, you died from lag. I had a number of deaths of that. But usually you make a mistake. I still remember really clearly my one of my most annoying ones is I had a really good Barbarian Magic Find character, and I was doing Meph runs. And you would race down through Durance 3 and run out that little peninsula and leap over to Meph's side.
Right.
And I did that one time, and I jumped and came down on the far right post, still on the wrong side of the moat by accident, and landed on top of a decrep MSLE brim, something like that. Just poof, 2,800 hit points, max lightning resistance, dead. One hit. As soon as I landed. It was a level 84 character, had 700 magic find, every perfect item I could get on, and I was like, ah.
Yeah, so what do you do then? How do you recover from that? The reason I'm attracted to the Diablo series in the first place is the whole the item hunt, the accumulation. You lost a full set of great barbarian gear from that, right?
I probably had a bunch of unbuild stuff too. That was what really vexed me. I remember I had a 90 plus sorceress die in the cows one time. I was doing a Nova Sork, and I had a little bit of lag, and I would just go like Frost Nova, Nova Nova, Frost Nova, Nova Nova, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I got lag, and somehow my Frost Nova didn't go through, and I got hit by 3 cows all at once, boom, dead.
Oh.
And I was just and I remember that character had I think I had a full Triangle set that I hadn't muled yet, I like the hard parts, the belt and the helm or something, and
yeah.
You would almost kind of mentally resign yourself to losing whatever you were wearing if someone died. Sometimes you play with a friend, you could get looted, but usually you were playing solo magic finds.
Right.
But it would really vex you when you lose stuff that you were just holding on to because you hadn't had a chance to mule it yet. And that was just it seemed like such a waste.
Well, with a shared stash now, probably won't be as much an issue, but
it won't be an issue at all, I would think.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I don't know. I think it made it more fun playing hardcore. I haven't played it in a few years because I really haven't played seriously on the realms.
Well, right. The realms are pretty bad right now anyway.
Especially hardcore. There have been so many hacks and stuff, but.
Yeah, well, just in terms of lag too. I've been playing on and off since the beginning of the year just for amusement's sake, really. But yeah, it's not very stable.
Well, just as well. I'm not playing anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fun at the start of hardcore. You have this sort of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps sort of phase where you finally get a character strong enough to do meth runs or something, and then you can start to sock up some equipment. At least you get mules, get a nice twink mule, get Sigan set and some of the level charms and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're if I die, I can get a new character back to 30 real easily with this stuff. And it just sort of makes it, and eventually you get, hopefully, ideally you get kind of a stable of high level characters who are not dying and who can really get cool equipment for your other characters. And you can eventually play almost every build with just twinking stuff. But the challenge, of course, is getting that. And I remember many times D2C was much harder to get high level.
Yeah.
I remember all these deaths I had. We should do a podcast on hardcore someday, and I can relate all these stories again. But the really bad was not Pendle Skin, Fang Skin, the level 2 in the Desert Tomb, the lightning enchanted.
Oh,
the snake guy on level 2 of whatever
in
the dungeon was.
Altar of the Serpents or whatever.
Yeah, it was on level 2, that little tiny room down there, and that was just a nightmare early in D2C. He was really fast, and his crew were fast, and it was always lightning, and you get
always lightning enchanted. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, I remember losing I used to really enjoy Spirazons for some reason, and losing 3 in a row at level 45 or so, or level 40. I get there in nightmare, and I was like, oh god, this is the room of doom. You get on there with your merc, and by the time the level loaded, the merc was dead, and you had half your hit points.
Yeah.
And there's 7 snakes and lightning bolts hitting you, and you're just like, god damn it.
And when they hit you, they don't just hit you; they also stun you and knock you back. And so.
Yeah, they were just individual places. I remember Duriel was just a nightmare because it used to be, especially in D2C, it was a big loading time, and you would just try to find a friend with a necromancer, get 5, get a whole posse of skeletons or something, just so you'd have a bunch of tanks to fight while you were lagged out.
Yeah, I feel like summoning. If I ever do venture into hardcore, it'll definitely be with a witch doctor, because summonables definitely help in when you have to stay alive.
Yeah, tanks are nice. Or you can just get a mercenary. Those are really powerful in Diablo 3, I hear. Oh wait.
Well,
they're really powerful in normal.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're digressing here off of our.
Yeah, we are.
So Ray of Frost Wizard, you've been looking at it.
Yeah.
You've been studying the wizard with the manic intent
of playing one. Yeah, I can't say that I'm super excited by any one of the runes, other than I really like the diversity in the 5 choices you have. I'm curious because does Disintegrate, which is obviously the skill everyone's going to compare to Ray of Frost, since they're basically the same skill, does it by default increase the damage it does every second, or is that a rune?
That was what they told us it did. That's actually not in the skill description. If people want to look at the Disintegrate page and then diablowiki.net/disintegrate, we have all these screenshot stuff that I did and other people did, going frame by frame from the gameplay videos, from the arena video, where it displays the damage being done overhead. And there's this whole debate about the damage doubles quite often in the pictures. It'll be doing 22 in one frame, and then it's 44, and then it's 46, and then it's 23, that kind of thing.
Right.
And sometimes it turns purple when you get the double damage, and sometimes, the beam of Disintegrate turns purple. And sometimes it doesn't. And there's this big debate if it's getting desynced, or if the graphics are in error, or if there's some sort of combination of, is it getting a critical strike, or is it getting the double damage as part of the skill itself? So it's unclear, and I cannot answer your question, except I use lots of words to not do so.
Okay, no, that was just, it was interesting to me that the Crimson Rune, which makes it deal more damage the longer it's in use, is pretty much it's very similar to what the default, let's just assume the default, because you didn't have skill runes in your skills, right, at that Blizzcon when you had arena play?
They were runed, yes.
Oh, they were runed.
Most of them were just the basic lowers mana cost. I remember it was hard to remember what they were.
Right.
The one I remember clearly was Diamond Skin, which added 50% to the damage absorption.
Oh, nice.
It was taking it from 100 to 150. But other ones, it was just something fairly basic, like it was lowers cost.
Okay, well, my hope is that the runes for Disintegrate are distinct from the runes for Ray of Frost, and so it doesn't do the same thing. Obviously, we won't find that out for a while, but that's just my hope, because they're such similar skills. I feel like they should definitely do different things. And we know already, Bashiax made one post about a Disintegrate rune that turns it into an extremely powerful cone attack, short range cone. And
like a short range hose them down kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's great. So I just hope the rest of them are consistently just different from the Ray of Frost. But as far as the Ray of Frost itself, I thought the Indigo one was really interesting. that completely changes the skill.
It makes like a swirling vortex kind of thing around the wizard.
Yeah, and I think I'm safe in saying that's the most changed that any skill gets that we've seen so far with the socketing of a rune. I also think that's really cool. And it makes me wonder also because we think that ice armor will slow attackers' attack speed and movement speed. I wonder if ice armor will stack with that, and then you have a wizard who just teleports into a bunch of mobs, maybe with the damaging teleport, and then just starts channeling, Ray of Frost aura, and just has every monster super slowed and super attacking super slow to give everyone else on the map a chance to take advantage of super slow monsters.
And we're assuming that the indigo effect on Ray of Frost will not allow you to run around with it in effect. We don't know, of course. She stood still in the video, but that doesn't necessarily mean...
Yeah, you're right. I would assume, since it is a channeled spell, that is no different. She would have to be channeling to maintain that aura, but it could be wrong. It could be a 10-second, 15-second buff, which would be even more powerful. But yeah.
And we're assuming she can't cast any other spells while that's in effect, too. I mean, maybe she can. Maybe you could cast Blizzard on yourself and have that active at the same time.
Right.
And just be the honeypot that brings all the monsters to be frozen instantly and killed.
Yeah, and you could even throw in Explosive Blast with that, since that's sort of like a tick down, right?
Yeah.
To blow up. So as the monsters are super slow and attacking super slowly, then they get blown up.
Yeah, Explosive Blast, for the listeners, if they're not aware of it, it's a wizard skill that is basically like a Nova, but it's on a time delay. So you trigger it, and 3 seconds later, it blows up from you. And people were using that at Blizzcon last year. You trigger it when you came on the edge of the screen from some big pack or something, and then you just run up to them, and by the time you got to them, the timer would tick down, it would go boom, and you just kill everything near you, which is a very different style of play with a wizard. I mean, usually you're running away from things and casting spells,
Yeah, no, I definitely. I'm really excited to test out the Indigo Rune with Ray of Frost and see. I mean, also the Explosive Blast, I think they said it could be runed to blow up 3 times, and that's just even better because
like skipping a stone.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom, boom, boom. I thought you were going to go here in your initial comment. The biggest question I have about Ray of Frost versus Disintegrate is if it pierces or not.
Oh, you think it won't?
I don't know. I mean, Disintegrate does, and that's kind of the selling point of it, that you can instantly hit anything anywhere on the screen. The damage lowers by 20% for each thing it passes through. But Disintegrate was just super, super powerful against, skeletal archers, that kind of stuff. Because you could shoot them the second you could see them before they would even start shooting arrows at you, and long before you could have, shot a projectile spell to them or cast a blizzard over their heads, you would have them dead.
Huh.
So if you were watching the edge of the screen and shooting forward a lot, you could kill 2/3 of ranged attackers before they ever got a shot off using Disintegrate.
Huh.
And that was super powerful for that. It wasn't so good for it wasn't so good against big mobs because it doesn't do that much damage to individual targets.
Right, or to multiple targets either, right? Because of the decrease.
Yeah, especially that. So it wasn't that good on bosses, and it wasn't that good against a whole huge mob. But it was fantastic against individual weak targets. And plus, it's so fast, nothing can dodge it. I mean, if you throw a magic missile or something, the target could well move before it gets there, or it just hits something between you and the target. Right. And Ray of Frost, I was assuming, wouldn't be piercing, because that just seems like if you could instantly chill every single monster on a third or a quarter of the screen, you just wave it around a little bit with your mouse. That seems overpowered to me, I mean, that's like a Frost Nova that goes all the way to the edge of the screen or something.
Yeah, I'd have to assume that as soon as the Ray of Frost stops touching a monster, that it no longer is frozen or chilled. But I don't know. Honestly, I didn't even think about that. I just assumed it worked just like Disintegrate, with lower damage and probably maybe a higher cost to compensate for the additional benefit of slowing and attack and movement.
Yeah, maybe, as you say, if there's no lingering effect. But even then, you could use it like you're cutting a piece of pie. You just kind of move it up and down across half or a third of the screen, and you could just perpetually keep everything more or less chilled. I guess there's a mana, the arcane power drain would limit your use of it that way. Or if, like you say, if his second it's not touching a monster, if there's no lingering chill or freeze effect from it.
Yeah, then as soon as you continue with your sweep, you lose that benefit. I think that would add part of the appeal to Indigo, is that instead of just slowing every monster in a line, you'd be slowing every monster that's around you. Yeah, that's another example where the gameplay video would have shown us immediately, as opposed to just the black screen.
Targets. Yeah, that was my thought. If it had been targets, it would have made it very obvious.
Yeah.
And I was kind of expecting one of the Ray of Frost runes when I first saw that was one of the skills. It would say it added piercing. I mean, plus we don't know anything about the skill levels. I mean, level 1 through 5 Ray of Frost might be hits up to 2 targets. And then
That's
level
true.
6 and above hits up to 5 targets or something like that. I mean, that could be part of what the skill levels add to it. But we don't know. So it makes a big difference in the utility of it, though.
Oh, for sure.
And the final skill and the final class to discuss is the Demon Hunter with her cluster arrow, which is very tempting to say cluster F word.
Yeah.
Somewhere. That was a real cluster F there. I thought that was really awesome to me. I was looking at I put up forum threads in all of our individual class forums when these videos first were released, we grabbed the videos immediately and put them all on YouTube before they were available on YouTube anywhere else. Right. And put those in the class forums and said, what do you guys think about these skills? And the wizard one has like 50 comments. They're kind of getting off topic into like PvP and stuff. But the other ones had, I don't know, 10 or 15 or 20 comments. And for some reason, Cluster had 3. I thought that was a really cool looking skill and interesting. And usually the Demon Hunter forum is actually one of our busier class forums at this point. So it's odd that it didn't get more discussion than that. It is as varied as I thought the effects of the rune effects were on that skill.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of the cluster arrow skill, because I don't know why. I don't have a reason for it. It just didn't excite me as much as the wizard, barbarian, and monk ones did. But that's probably because I'm looking forward to playing those classes more, anyways. So
yeah, I was a big Boazon fan, so I've been following the Demon Hunter skills and how her arrows work. And I liked the initial hit of the cluster arrow on the default skill and 4 of the runestones. It's just like sort of this bazooka blast that just goes wham, wham. I mean, it's like she's shooting at a truck. It looks so big when it first goes out. And boom. This huge sound effect on it. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, the obsidian rune I actually thought was really cool. The one where it turns it into a massive, I mean, instead of going straight to the spot you targeted, it's like dropping grenades out behind it as it follows a high arc.
Yeah, that was by far the most interesting, I thought, strategically. Because the other 4 are all kind of, hits target and causes damage to things around target.
Yeah.
And the obsidian one, as you say, it kind of launched like this ship mine, it looked like. This big spiky ball thing flying way overhead.
Yeah.
And it dropped little grenades down as it went.
That by far was my favorite. To be honest with you, the Indigo one, the heat-seeking missiles, I don't understand that one at all. I suppose that would make it really, really, it would make it more useful for single targets. But I feel like the time you'd want to have high single target damage would be bosses who are generally, from the videos we've seen so far, big enough that all of the explosions would hit them anyway. So I don't know. I can't think of a good case where you'd really want those heat-seeking missiles instead of grenades.
My impression of them was that they weren't heat-seeking, was that they just retargeted 3 things nearby from the explosion. So basically you got the one big hit and then 3, or I guess more than 3 with probably higher levels. It's sort of, residual cluster shrapnel damage around there, but it would actually target things. So that seemed like it would be useful against big mobs. But then of course the golden one was sort of the same thing, except it shot out these shadow creatures that you couldn't discern against the black background.
Right.
But they added life leech, so I don't know. It seemed like why would you not want that instead of just adding damage? I guess if you have life leech from other stuff or you don't need the life leech, you wouldn't care. But
yeah, I suppose this is another scenario where we'd really need to know the devil's in the details, like exactly how much the initial explosion does, how much each minor secondary explosion does, what their blast radiuses are to determine how much you actually need to have it targeting instead of just bouncing out and exploding where they land.
Yeah, and similar to my question about Ray of Frost, the thing I thought was really curious about this is how piercing will affect the Demon Hunter. If there's going to be piercing, if there's a piercing trait like there was in D2 for the Amazon,
Yeah.
or if certain bows will have it, or if it's going to be like a really rare thing. Because you can envision some of these effects, if that triggered every time it hit, you shoot into a pack and you hit 5 monsters, and every single one of them causes 5 more little grenades to blow out. That would be just gigantic.
Yeah, chain explosion.
Yeah, that was fun in D2. Like, you've had an immolation arrow or a freezing arrow with a Amazon, and you had high piercing. You could get that effect would trigger 4 or 5 times. But those effects were much less, visually impressive and destructive than it seems like this cluster arrow creates.
Yeah. Well, my favorite, actually, if we're going back to D2, was the Javelin Amazon. With
of course. Yeah, Lightning Fury.
Lightning Fury and piercing, that was just ridiculous.
And that was what made the Javazon like the most effective cow killer in some ways.
Oh, yeah. Just, you could set off massive chain explosions. But from what we've seen of this skill, I feel like piercing wouldn't affect it like it did for Immolation Arrow. And I'm not quite sure why I feel that. I feel like the Immolation Arrow was just you're adding an enchantment to the arrow, which can pass through multiple monsters, while this one, it looks like you're just chucking a bomb, not necessarily putting a bomb on an arrow. But I don't know. I could be totally off base on that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I'm sure there'll be other, similar kind of Demon Hunter arrow effects where it hits. I mean, I've wondered about like piercing with something like the bolo shot.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be kind of nonsensical. Like, how do you pierce a rope with 2 balls on it that's swinging around? How can there be more of them? But it's magic, so we'll just overlook that fact.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope piercing makes it back. I do have a Boazon right now on the Battle.net Realms, and it's super fun to just run around spamming multi-shot. So I'm really hoping Pierce makes it back in some form or another. It's just not clear how many of the skills will be affected by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because multi-shot in D3 is like completely irrelevant to piercing because it shoots out like 150 arrows in one little burst, and everything in that, everything on that fan of the screen gets hit no matter what.
Yeah.
But other skills, it'll be a big difference. I mean, something like entangling arrow. Is it entangling arrow or entangling shot? I can never remember. It seems like these are pretty much randomly chosen shot and arrow.
Yeah, probably shot, I think, my guess. Like,
this could be called cluster shot. It would make no difference of any sort.
That's true.
And plus, you're using crossbows half the time, and crossbows don't fire arrows. So shouldn't they have some of them called like cluster bolt? Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know if they want a 4-letter word after cluster.
They're going to get it anyway.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Cluster ARRO. Cluster arrow. Arrow. So yeah, I mean, who knows? But it's going to be. We still know very few. I think we know like 12 Demon Hunter skills is all, which is like half.
Yeah.
So, at least a few. Of course, most of the ones we know actually are arrow attacks. But I thought entangling shot could be amazingly fun if it had like high level piercing. I mean, you basically be like shooting a spider web across a third of the screen.
Yeah.
Like every monster's got like 9 chains between it. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome if it ends up working like that. I would like it.
Entangling shot was really fun to use at BlizzCon. You don't really see it that much in the videos, but if you hit like a fast boss to like a zombie and they were chained together, the chain would stretch out like a screen and a half. Like it would literally stretch off the screen as the boss was chasing you.
Huh.
But it was like going slowly. Like, I mean, actually, it was like it was pulling like an elastic rope, like a bungee cord or something between it and the other monster.
Huh. So they stay linked then, no matter.
Yeah, they would stay linked. I had a couple really of extra fast bosses, and they were literally stretching off the screen to whatever else it was chained to. While this monster with like this extra fast wraith was like galloping after me, and it seemed like it should have made the other monster move faster. Like it would slow the boss, but the other monster seemed to like it was slower.
Huh.
And it seemed like it should have been, like if you had a really slow large monster.
Yeah.
And a really fast small monster. Like, it would be running in place, like its little feet would be burning for traction and nothing was happening kind of thing. The physics weren't quite that realistic, but it was really funny to see the different things roped together.
Yeah. That skill is going to be super powerful. If it looks like, from the screenshots, right, that the number of monsters snared goes up and the amount of snare itself, like how slow they get down to, goes up, And yeah, so I mean, that's really all you need, right? Is to slow as many monsters as slow as possible and then just start firing your bola or multi-shots, however you want to do it.
Yeah, multi was disappointing in damage. It was really high mana cost. Of course, it's not mana anymore, so who knows how that will be in the final game. But
yeah.
But I mean, multi-shot was it was not economical to use unless you had like at least 6 targets you were hitting with it. Otherwise, it was just huge mana drain for not more damage than a bolo shot. I was kind of disappointed in that one. But, I was only level 1. Maybe it improves the damage with more points in it.
Yeah, or, can get a rune, the Crimson Rune, to really up it.
True.
Or Golden to improve its, throughput.
Yeah. One other thing about the skill runes you just reminded me of is it's not real predictable what they do. I mean, generally speaking, Crimson adds, either fire damage or more damage. And like Golden kind of generally reduces mana cost or, whatever resource cost is.
Yeah.
But they don't, obviously that's not always the case. I mean, like previous example we had was of the Hydra skill. And like they all just became different elemental types basically. Except one became like a firewall shooting thing.
Right. I kind of like that. We identified a couple more in the forum thread on the subject. The Indigo was sort of the increase the radius or add multi-shot, basically hit more monsters with it. And Alabaster tends to have a sort of a crowd control effect to it. But there's exceptions, and that's good. That you want variety because, like they said, how are you going to do a multi-shot like mirror image? What you're just going to split into more images? I mean, that would be cool, but I feel like that should be a process of leveling up the skill that gives you more images, and the skill rune should just really focus on giving it diversity. And yeah, I think that's fine with it. There's enough that there's a theme that you can sort of see, but there's exceptions to it all over the place, and I like that.
Yeah, another thing on that point that I thought was useful in terms of the making more variety is that if, in the previous rune version when it was like power and force rune and energy rune and stuff, very simple, basic stuff, it seemed like, for instance, the power rune would have been by far the most popular rune because it's always adding damage.
Right.
And then, nobody wants the rune that just lowers the resource cost, or very seldom wants that one. Everybody wants multi-shot for like 3 skills and not for anything else. And it seems like by adding, by kind of scrambling them around, it makes it more viable. I mean, you don't want everybody just wanting 1 or 2 kinds of runes and no one cares about indigos or something,
Yeah, no, that's very true. Although my hope is that since every class has their own resource, and I mentioned this earlier, but since every class has their own resource system, that reducing resource cost actually is an important attribute to have, and willpower is actually a desirable stat that you can choose as an alternative, say, to attack or precision. I hope it's a viable alternative because really spamming skills is what Diablo is all about, and hopefully there's incentive to be able to spam them more, not like Diablo 2 where the resource pretty much became irrelevant at a high enough level.
And all you ever wanted was damage.
Right, and with the right gear, of course.
Yeah, as the more we talk about this stuff, the more we realize we just don't know. There's so many details, and we almost nothing about the itemization. We're planning a podcast on that in the future, but we know so few modifiers and so few prefixes and suffixes and how these things will interact with skills and traits. It's just like so much to speculate about at this point. Yeah,
no, it's true, and that's cool. But I'm really looking forward to when we can actually discuss in earnest, like the Demon Hunter resource system versus the Wizard resource system, and which one we like better, and which one scales with willpower better, and stuff like that.
And we may find out. They've said they're going to reveal all of these systems before the beta starts.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't know what the system. Everyone pretty much agrees there's going to be an auction house system reveal.
Yeah.
But other than that, it seems like it's wide open. If we're going to get do resources count as a system? Are they going to give us a detailed description of what all the resources do?
I hope so, but yeah, you're right. We don't know if it's going to be a reveal or if we're going to just find out when people start playing the beta.
Yeah, well, in either case, it shouldn't be too long. When is your? I noticed I haven't made the last 2 live chats we had because I was moving and not available. But I noticed the last one. I was looking over the transcript of it, and there was a vote. When do you think the beta is going to start? And and the options. They've told us it's going to be what, June, July. I mean, July, August, or September. It's going to start in.
Right.
And, and the vote options were like, first half July, second half July, first half August, etc.
Yeah.
And it was like 57% first half of July. It's like, no matter, and this is like, these are like, people in our live chats. Obviously, if you're in a live chat on a Diablo fan site before the beta even starts, you're a pretty hardcore fan. You're pretty knowledgeable. And even as much as everything Blizzard ever does is delayed in the last possible minute, and it takes years longer than expected, and we all just constantly make jokes about how slow they are. Still, a majority of the readers, of the most savvy readers of the most savvy website, are still thinking the beta is going to start within the first 2 weeks when it possibly could.
I think it's hope.
If I'd been in the chat, I would have put up a second vote. Will the beta start July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, later? Just to see if there should have been, 57% July 1st. They're going to. I mean, it could be. If they want to get the game out by the end of the year, we're looking at probably a 4, 5, 6 month beta, so they got to get it started in July or August. But I just really, how many times can Lucy hold that football for you guys? And then you rush up to kick it, and then she yanks it away. And then if they start the beta in mid-August, people are going to be totally pissed. They're 6 weeks late with the beta. It's okay.
6 weeks, yeah, that's not late. It's right on time.
I know, but it seems like if it's August 3rd, where were you 2 days ago? I had time off from work. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I hope people don't take time off work to play beta.
Well, if you got in the beta, you take time off from work probably, but
yeah.
Don't book that in advance. It's nobody knows about betas in Blizzard. They're very unpredictable with who gets them and how many, and if they give out 1,000 or 100,000.
Yeah.
So when do you think the beta will start? I'll put you on the spot. July, August, September, or later?
Let's see. If I have to pick one, I'll just pick the middle. I'll say beginning of August. I'm actually sort of hoping.
It'll be delayed? So you think it'll be 5 weeks delayed then? Oh wait.
Right. Yeah. And that's fine. I sort of reached a point where I'm confident that they're working as hard as they can to get the game out as soon as they can, and we know that they've already started serious internal testing, so the end is in sight. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I don't even have I think I'll say mid to late August. I have absolutely nothing to base that on. But just because I made you predict it, I have to make a prediction as well, just to be fair.
Yeah.
And I would be shocked if it's early July. I mean, what's the last time they did something before you expected it,
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think it'll be September 31st, although I wouldn't entirely rule that out given their past history of, everything.
Yeah, and also, I'm super excited I'm going to BlizzCon, so regardless of when beta starts or whether I get in, I know that I'm going to be able to play Diablo 3 this year, and that's also a little bit of a comfort, even though it'll just be for 15 minutes.
At a time.
At a time, right.
10 times in a row.
Yeah, I definitely, because I think Nineball was saying on one of the earlier podcasts or recordings or something, that there really, by the time BlizzCon gets here, there won't be a lot to announce about Diablo, and as big of a Blizzard fan as I am, I could care less about the new World of Warcraft expansion since I'm done with that game, and StarCraft's fun, but I'm not a huge, that's just not the game type of play I like, so I anticipate waiting in line multiple times to play the Diablo 3 demo, just to try every character and in PvE and PvP, or to see what, try, and if I play it more than 10 times, then, I'll start picking different skills and skilling things up and just trying to find more and more items and stuff like that.
And with any luck, knowing them, it probably will be just the beta build. But I mean, it could in theory be something not in the beta. It might be Act 2 or some different era we haven't seen before. It would be the playable demo.
Yeah, that's true. I actually have a question for you. You've been to every BlizzCon that had Diablo 3 playable, right?
Yes.
Were there from the videos I've seen, it looks like they're pretty, a lot of them have been pretty seriously corridor based. Are there going to be any more big open fields like we saw in the first one?
Well, the 09 demo was the desert.
Okay, and the desert was pretty open?
Yeah, when the monk debuted. That was actually that was mostly open desert. It was more open than Act 2 and Diablo 2 anyway.
Oh, wow, okay.
And much less linear, but we actually have a map of that whole area in the wiki somewhere. I can dig the link up and put it in this podcast post.
Oh, cool.
But like they've said, the map was the same outline every game. The outer edges of the map and the inner edges But, the content varied. You would get different stuff in different places, and there'd be a little city sometimes, one place, it'd be like a broken down wagon kind of thing. Other times there'd be an NPC there, that kind of stuff. Those random events they've described.
So the variations are more what you encounter and not just like what the map looks like.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an odd, because you'll know where the pressure points are, where the spawn points are in the maps.
Okay.
You'll know, you'll be like, I have to run southwest and then turn at the corner to get to the dungeon to the next level. But if I go south 4 screens, there's this spot where sometimes, a monster, sometimes a boss will spawn, sometimes whatever will spawn.
Okay.
And they put like chests around all the corners of the map, kind of like the Arcane Sanctuary in D2.
Oh, right.
So it like every time there's like lots of these dead end corner kind of cul-de-sac things. There's always like a big sparkly chest there.
All right.
Or a boss pack will spawn in the same place every time or something. So you kind of have incentive. I think what'll happen in D2 is we'll all learn the maps, outdoor maps, and then you'll just run to like 4 spots on every map every time.
To get your loot or your boss kill.
Yeah, that'll be the places where cool stuff spawns. And you won't necessarily, you'll know where the exit is to get to the next area if you just want to zoom right through.
Right.
But there'll be these little spawn points in between, and you might get some cool thing there. And at least what you'll want to go see. Or maybe you'll detour to some corner for the 2 sparkly chests. Well, thanks for the chat. We went almost an hour and a half.
Nice. Well, it's exciting stuff. It's just we don't have any of the details yet, so that we can't get too deep in our analysis of how things will be used.
We spent 90 minutes discussing 5 skill runes. I think that's pretty deep in our analysis, but yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy once we have actual facts and figures to back up our arguments and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. And even if we don't have all the items yet, I still really would like to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, well, before the beta, and then of course everything we say will be wrong, 6 weeks later, but
Yep.
It'll be fun to discuss. Maybe next weekend we can do that one. All right, well, thanks for the chat.
Yeah, man, you too. It was really fun. Sorry, I've been a little drained because I was at the beach all weekend, and so I'm just like, redheads don't do well with sun. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, I have red hair as well, so that's why I'm in Oregon now.
All right, well, enjoy
not a lot of beach worries up here.
Yeah, enjoy the actual weather.
Yeah, the rain every other day. All right, I'll talk to you later, Ben.
All righty, take it easy.